second hit. And I'm sitting there, and all my momentum's going forward. There's no way in the world I'm not going to take that next step. And so as you sit there, you can probably imagine what's about to happen. You can feel it, you can see it, and you know it's painful, right? You know what's coming. And when I look at what's going on with our government today and in our country today, I think that's exactly where we are. If we take one more step, it's going to be painful. Not fatal necessarily, but it's something that you don't want to have to deal with. And I don't know that you might never recover. And you look at that and you say, well, how did we get here? What's going on? I always start with this deficit, $11.5 trillion of debt that we've run up. How are we going to pay for that? Right? I see the young man sitting back there. Right? This is his future. Our generation is spending all of this money, and we're telling him he's got to pay it back. And everyone in the room, we're here because we know that's wrong. But why is that happening? How do we let that happen? Look at what the government's doing. I live in Texas, down along the border. There's places I go, I can't even understand what's being said. I can't read the billboards. I can turn on the radio and can't understand what's being said. It's not even English anymore. These borders leak like a sieve. We have a tax code that's 67,000 pages. Right? The people that are running the department, they can't figure out how to pay their taxes. Right? Every one of us dreads April 15th every year. We have an education system. 30% of our kids fail to graduate high school. Most would argue that another 20%, 50% total, are getting out and should never even be released from high school. They don't have the knowledge, the competence. Right? This is our country. Half of our kids aren't getting the education they were formed. We have a federal Department of Education. It was formed in 1972. You know what the graduation rate was when it was formed? It was like 71%. You know what it is today? 71%. 37 years later, what do they have, a $64 billion budget? And it hasn't changed one bit. Right? We all see that. We all know it's wrong. We're here because we don't like it. But what do we do about it? Right? We have probably the greatest form of government ever created, ever. Right? We have the Constitution. It's right there. It's probably, I would call it the second most important, second best written document ever. And the guys don't follow it, right? We have this republic. We have a way to select representatives, right? We can choose anybody we want to go up there and represent us. But do they? Right? We have guys like John Murtha. Every budget that comes through, $30 million or more to build an airport in his district. 3 flights a day, 3 in, 3 out, round trip. 6. Okay, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's got a beautiful restaurant in there. Y'all know what the name of the restaurant is? The name of the airport is? The John Murtha Airport. Right? How wrong is that? We have guys like Arlen Specter, a 5-time U.S. Senator. He switches parties. I'm always surprised that the other party will accept somebody when they do that. But did y'all see what he said when he switched parties? Why? I'm not going to let the members of my district determine the fate of my political career. Right? What arrogance? What arrogance? Y'all look it up, go Google it. Right? They can't say things anymore and not get caught. Right? You have politicians, sometimes, and I always use the Joe Lieberman example. I think it's the most extreme. He's the number 2 guy on the Democratic ticket in the year 2000. Right? The vice presidential candidate. In 2004, the debate on should we fund the troops that we've sent over into harm's way, should we fund them or not, he has the gall to vote his conscience and say, well, yeah, we should fund these guys. And what does the Democratic Party do? They completely run him out of office. He can't even win in his primary because he doesn't vote the way his party tells him to vote. A U.S. Senator. Like, how wrong is that? Everybody sees it and says, why are we doing this? I would argue that these politicians that are up there, and I won't call them representatives, I'll call them politicians, they don't represent us. They represent the special interest groups that fund them. They represent the political party that tells them how they have to vote. And they represent their own political career. We the people are 4th at best on their list. Almost across the board. Now there's a few exceptions, but almost across the board. And then the other thing they do, and this is perhaps the worst to me, is they sit there and they just lie to us. They tell us whatever they want to say when election time comes around, right? Term limits, contract with America. Vote for me, we'll vote for term limits. We get in, Dick Armey becomes Speaker of the House. Oh, wait, we don't need term limits. We're in power now. Right? George Bush, read my lips, I will not raise your taxes. Bill Clinton, national TV, looks us in our television eyes, says I did not have sex with her. Right? They just sit there and lie to us. They don't even think twice about it because they know the way this system is rigged, these people are going to win this district and these people are going to win this one, and what are we going to do about it? In 2004, I moved to a little town called Liberty Hill. I didn't think nothing about it at the time, but looking back, I think it's one of these signs that have led me here. Shortly after we moved, my wife and I have been trying to figure this out, maybe within the same week as we're trying to pin it down. My mom came down with cancer, went through a fairly short battle, and lost. I was coaching a youth baseball team, a group of kids since they were about 8 years old. As they were growing up, had been coaching these kids. They were 14 at the time. They all just graduated high school. 7 kids off of this 11-member team are going to play college baseball next year. This was a very impressive, talented bunch of kids. One of the dads, probably the best player on the team, committed suicide. And it was devastating to these kids just to see the impact it had on them. It was devastating to the coaches, to me, I mean, to everybody. It's just, you can't ever explain something like that. And I was really burned out after going through that with my mother. And I said, we need to get out of town. We're going to take a vacation to Florida. We scheduled one on short notice. 3 days before we leave, a shark attacks the surfer right off the coast of where we're staying, like literally 100 yards down the beach. So we're not going to go swimming. The surfer was okay. As we're driving into town, the air conditioner on the Suburban breaks down. We get the family all checked in. The next day, I go over to the car shop and say, hey, what can you do? And he goes, yeah, we can fix it. We'll get to it today for you. It's only going to cost you $1,000. And I said, okay. Is there a bookstore somewhere I can go while I'm here? I want to get something to read. I got 8 hours to kill. And he goes, yeah, there's one a couple of miles up the road. So I called my brother on the cell phone and said, hey, Steve, I'm going to get a book on vacation. What do you recommend? He goes, get this book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Madness or Maintenance. It's a great book. So I go into the bookstore and I start to tell the guy, he asked me if he could help me. And I said, yeah, give me this book, Zen. Oh, I got it. Come over here. And this young lady over here, she grabs it and goes, sir, I got a book for you. Okay, somebody offers you a book, right? You want to go see what they have to say. She walks me over to the history section. I have absolutely no interest in history whatsoever, right? I kind of like to read Christian books and spy novels and business books and that sort of thing. But she walks over to this history section and she hands me this book. It's called A Brilliant Solution, and I kind of look at it and I said, not for me. And so I start to go back. She goes, no, sir, I want you to read this book. I take it, I look at it a little bit more closely. It's about James Madison and the writing of the Constitution. And I kind of look at it, and I said, thanks, but the Zen book, that's what I want to get. And I turned and started to walk away, and she goes, sir, I want you to read this book 3 times. So I go back, and I get the book. The next day, Tropical Storm Cindy blows into Florida. So I'm in my hotel room, and I get to start reading this book, and it's really a fascinating book, right, about the day and the writing of the Constitution, what have you. The next day was a beautiful day. We went fishing in the bay, had a good day. And then the next day, here comes Hurricane Dennis bearing down on Florida. Everybody out of town, right? All 4 high planes getting out. So I drive back to Austin. Now, you guys might remember this is the year of the hurricane. I think it was about a month later, here comes Hurricane Katrina. And we all remember what that did, the devastation it had on the Gulf Coast. And then 3 weeks after that, here comes Hurricane Rita, the biggest Category 5 hurricane ever seen, known to man, bearing down on Houston. My dad calls me at 6 in the morning and says, son, the hurricane's coming. I need to get out of town. Can I come to Austin? I said, sure, Dad. Come on up. His wife calls me at noon and says, Tim, you need to come to Houston. Your dad's just had a heart attack. I drive into town. So I'm driving in. 2 million people are driving out. I go to see the doctor. We talked for a little bit. He said, son, there's really not much we can do. We need to watch this for a couple of days. But right now the storm's coming. You better get out of town. So I get in line, and now I'm behind 4 million people driving from Houston out of town. A drive that should take 3 hours to Austin takes 24 and a half. I get there, and the next morning, the storm turns, completely misses Houston, not a drop of rain, and 2 days later I have to go back and turn the machines off on my father. It's just that kind of year. It was a terrible year. We were out at the lake house. We have this little shed on our property, and you guys can probably relate. You look at these sheds and you say, there's snakes in that shed.